What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. I'm your host, Tyler, and you're tuning in to episode 37. Quick note before we dive in. We had a couple technical difficulties during this one. The wrong mic input was recording on our end, and the Attic podcast room was not cooperating that day. So audio's not as clean as usual, but trust me, the conversation is still top tier and well worth the listen. Joining us remotely is James, calling in from Montana. He grew up in the woods of northern Minnesota, split his time between sports and fishing, and now works coil rigs out in South Dakota while running a landscaping business and raising a family. He's also built SIP panel homes all across the Midwest. In the studio, we got the always entertaining Hunter, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia Tech grad, former cannabis farmer, and now fully focused on golf and becoming the most iconic guest this podcast has ever seen. In this episode, we get into how coil rig crews operate, the logistics behind oil production, SIP construction, CDL mandates, skilled labor, financial literacy, and even the RVA water crisis. We also rewind a bit to talk video games and real estate in today's world. New episodes drop every other Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with the occasional surprise drop in between. You can catch up anytime at .cards/Slanted Attic. Let's get into it.
All right. Well, Hunter's deliberately changing his travel plans. We'll get started here. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we're joined by a longtime friend, first-time guest. I met James 10 years ago now, just almost. It'll be 10 years ago, I think, in November-ish, December, when we went on that trip together. So, all y'all listeners out there, we'd like to welcome him. And why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll just get right into it.
Well, hi, guys. My name is James Gosvig. I'm from northern Minnesota. We've known Tyler now for, it'll be 10 years on the week of Christmas.
That's right.
Yeah. We met in Jamaica while we were both on vacation. So.
Yep. We've been gaming together ever since. I mean, a couple sniper clans, doing a lot of Call of Duty action. We talked about that before here on the podcast. Had J-Bomb. Missed that guy. But Hunter's been a part of that too. A little bit in college. We played a lot of Fortnite together, so I'm sure you two have crossed paths. But something I wanted to get into kind of right away, as we brought it up at the very beginning, was your previous job. We were talking about you're the general manager of an oil field or an oil rig field. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm kind of interested in, that's really heavy machinery. So I guess first, kind of get into the job aspects, and I want to know a little bit about like the types of machines y'all are working with and, skilled labor that goes on there.
Okay. I've chased a coil crew around. A coil rig is made up of many, many different components. There's usually around 10 different companies that all come together and make it happen. But one well, so you think there's usually numerous wells on each oil pad location, anywhere from 1 all the way up to 15 on some. It just depends. One well costs over $7 million to drill. So, and that's just the beginning. So that doesn't include any of the well maintenance, anything as far as the entire experience goes with that. So, but yeah, we typically work with a coil crew, which is usually a giant spool of metal that's hollow, and you put a drill bit on the end of it, and you force water through it, and it'll spin the drill to usually clear any debris or lengthen the existing well, getting down as deep as possible. Sure. I typically work with ExxonMobil, and they set a lot of records last year for North Dakota region. I work in the Bakken oil field in western North Dakota, but the new depth record for North America is a little over 35,000 feet now. So
that's insane. That is crazy. I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into something like that.
So like 6.5 miles.
Yes. Typically we go down somewhere in the 12,000 foot range, and then there's a 90-degree turn, surprisingly, and then we go out multiple miles in multiple directions. So one location could have 10 different wells on it. All of them go down 10,000 feet, and they could all spider web in different directions.
So two
you
questions.
could cover a 20-mile radius with one location.
That's crazy, dude. So two questions from that. I guess first is, how do you maneuver the equipment down there to do that? And then do you like map it out with LiDAR, like GPR or something, so you know where the spots are, the deposits? You said that's what wells are called?
Yes.
That's what it's called.
So usually there's a group that goes in preemptively, I guess, with LiDAR and stuff of that range to find the oil deposits, and a lot of it at that depth is more of it. So you're down in your 10,000-12,000 foot range is really your depth that the bigger pockets of oil are going to be in. So you can kind of determine that way, I guess, where you're going, and sometimes it's not even just oil. A lot of times there's multiple different things. So some wells are drilled specifically for oil. Some of them are drilled for farming natural gas, and others are just big water deposits underground that are actually salt water. They'll come back and they'll filter the salt water and actually sell it again. So
That is wild.
How do you get the drills to turn 90 degrees, like at the bottom? What is your like bore diameter?
That also changes. So going down around 5,000 feet, the well bore is actually larger. It's somewhere in the 8-inch range, and then it necks down usually to around a 3-ish inch range. That can vary slightly depending on quantity and stuff, but usually it's around 3-inch coil tubing that we push through the existing pipe there. So probably 3 1/4. So well bore going down, like I said, significant distance. It always varies though, and the newer wells are getting bigger, so they're able to put more money into them to be able to produce more. But back in the day, they could have only been 2 inches. It always varies just how much money they had to try and produce what they could.
Is there a reason you have to go into it at like an angle and not just drill into the top of the deposit? Would that be harder to extract all of it because you're like at the top, you need to go underneath it?
It could or it couldn't. I guess the biggest thing is going into them from the side. You can continuously expand it to go to the next deposit.
Gotcha.
Instead of just going, because if you're going straight down, you're just going to start getting into that more bedrock, and it's just going to chew your bit. So
so it's more like economical, more efficient to go down and then spread out to different ones from that one point.
More longevity out of it,
Super neat. I never thought of that, dude. I never knew how they did that.
That's crazy.
Our operation is pretty extensive, to say the least, I guess. So following a coil crew is kind of more of the maintenance side, I guess, of a well. So there's the site prep. Obviously, they're making the ground flat to be able to house the entirety of the operation. And then they'll bring in a drilling rig, which will actually bore the hole and set the tubes in the ground so that it doesn't recollapse on itself. And then over the course, there's multiple different things. Workover rigs come in, and they can try and help fix the wells as well, and anything that's little or wrong, they can do most of it. There's also wireline crews that can set plugs and stuff to fix holes or whatnot in the wells, and then the coil crews are typically come in when there's mass amounts of debris stuck in the well. So that's very common, especially at that 90-degree corner, because material gets stuck coming from a horizontal to a vertical position. And don't get me wrong, it's pretty sloped. It's not like a straight 90-degree corner or something. It's over the course of a mile probably, it's sloped. But a lot of debris gets caught in that corner, and they'll call us in to clear it.
So what's the longevity you get out of one, I guess, location? I guess not necessarily the rig itself. Do you have to keep the rig there the whole time, or like when you're going down there with the coil? I guess it drills it, right? So you would have to be some sort of
You have to
mechanic,
be at least monitor, have a valve to control the flow.
right? So how long does that last? Like how long, if it's well maintained, I guess.
Depending on the amount of debris. So if like some days we'll rig up on a well, and most wells are capped with 2 master valves at the top. So in case one fails, there's a backup. No matter what, it's shut in. It's closed. It's not going to open on its own. And that's if they're not in production. If they are in production, there's even more fail safes. But coming as most typical wells that we come and work on are 2 master valves at the top, and we hook on to the top of those, and then we can open those so that we have access to be able to get into the well. I guess our main thing is forcing water down to try and get oil to come back up. So say a well stopped producing, it was at 100 barrels a day producing oil, and it went down drastically to 35. Then they're like, okay, there's got to be a plug somewhere, or there's a hole in the casing, or there's some kind of problem. They would call us to go down and find out what's wrong. And it's pretty difficult a lot of the time to tell exactly what's wrong unless you go down and find out. So
what's that procedure like? You said you go through the existing tubes to like just punch it back through?
yeah.
Do you like vacuum up sediment, or do you push out blockages, or like how does it work depending on what it is?
So yes, depending on how deep the well was, typically you try and get the coil all the way to the bottom. And the water, so the tube is hollow, and we force water through the inside, and it spins the drill. Obviously, the water's coming out the bottom also to force it to spin, kind of like a turbine. And then it's pushing the water back up the outside of the casing. So anything, because we're forcing water down, it's going to force it back up and carry the debris back to surface so that it won't replug the same hole, hopefully.
Are you doing that against the flow of like oil or gas coming out? Like how do you do it if the tube's already,
Yes, it's alongside that. So it's everything's
That's
very,
wild.
very pressure regulated.
Yeah.
A lot of the time you have 8-ish thousand pounds of pressure coming back on you while you're trying to force water down. So
And like push against it.
yes, and you're also, so the coil is feeding in slowly at the same time as water is going through the center tube, as well as having head pressure. It's called head pressure back on the tool. So
Yeah.
you have to go slow so that you're not exceeding the pressure, or it's going to potentially stop the bit from spinning, which is not a very good thing. So, as that's what's clearing your debris.
Damn. And that, yeah, I guess every one of those rigs needs that all the time, I'm sure, right? Like how often does debris get stuck? You said pretty frequently. So
Pretty frequently. Last year, I think we did somewhere around 100 different wells that we serviced.
wow.
And cleared debris from, and even multiple that we went back to one specific location that is the depth record location. It actually, we were there 5 times last year.
That's crazy.
So it just, there's 8 different wells on that specific location, and we just go through them one at a time and make sure that they're flowing properly. And every time you go down to make sure that all the debris is cleared, it's always helping no matter what. Even if you get minimal debris, at least you know that there was nothing blocking it anymore, is the the biggest thing.
Right.
You're going to get the most production out of it. So
Right. I mean, because the overhead cost is so high for something like
extremely.
that. You need to know you're milking it for every last drop.
How
Oh yeah.
long in like hours does it take you to get like a coil down 35,000 feet?
Going down and coming all the way back out, usually somewhere in a 3-day span, and it's 24-hour operations. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane.
yeah,
I
two
don't know
two
about
different
overhead.
12-hour shifts of guys, and there's a like I said, there's usually around 10 different companies that kind of come together where I run all the semi trucks on the water side and some of the oil side. I guess that kind of varies depending on where we are. But yeah, there's a coil, the guys that specifically run the coil unit and its piping. There's a group that's flowback. They receive the water coming back from the well and distribute it. So they have a separator that splits between the gas, water, and oil, and they can disperse it into its uh, specific areas. Um, and then we have a guy that specifically only deals with the tools, which would be the drill bit on the end. If that's used up or we need different things. So sometimes we got to put different sections of pipe together that do different things. Some of them burst water more frequently. Some of them have different size tools on the like drill bits on the bottom. Um, there's a whole slew of different stuff like that.
What do you do when you go down? You said like the, you know, initial bore is larger. Do you go through it with a diameter of the one that's at the base, like a 3-inch drill, or do you
Yep.
go down
Yep.
and then have a different one?
No, we go with the 3-inch one.
So you can get through the base.
Yep. So we
Okay.
we plan on just going down hopefully one time and coming all the way out, going all the way down, all the way out. Sometimes you have to make multiple trips depending on um, different things. So a lot of wells they'll try and build pressure to get a better return. So they'll place plugs in the well so that it gains pressure, I guess. And it usually in an average well of that depth, there's usually somewhere in the 40 plug range. And we drill right through those plugs. And then we have to get usually they're made out of rubber, and the rubber will have to be able to be ground small enough to make it on the outside of the tube to make it back up to surface. And sometimes that gets caught also. So we have to come in and out trying to get all of the pieces.
Right.
What's the total number? You said I don't remember the name of the oil field you mentioned, but what's the total number of like rigs, wells in that
That
entire
is,
region?
they're
Thousands. Yeah, that's a lot.
thousands. Just just ExxonMobil in the Bakken oil field, I think they have somewhere probably in at least 300 wells in this area,
Yeah,
and they easily have that many also in Texas. So
yeah. The different companies have wells at the same rigs, or is one rig usually owned by one company?
rigs are mobile. It's I guess the rigs are depending on who hires who.
Okay.
But the different sites, yes, there's multiple different sites from hundreds of different owners. It's there's a few main ones. ExxonMobil, they own quite a few in this region, and then Marathon owns quite a few in this region. There's multiple oil companies and different. You look at gas stations and stuff. Multiple different
Yeah.
gas stations that own the rights to a lot of these wells.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, those companies own the land rights or whatever. And then they subcontract it out to it. That's the rig crew, and they own their own. That's the equipment. All of that comes with the crew. So you
Yep.
said there's 10 of those companies that exist up there. That's crazy, man.
No, there's more than 10 companies that exist. There's just 10 specific branches that make up one site
I
operation.
gotcha. I
So,
see.
like, my company it deals specifically with the trucking. There's another company that helps with water distribution. There's another company that does the flow back, gets the returns. The guy that does tools. There's companies that do like the different light towers and stuff like that.
Right.
The actual coil unit itself, they usually have people, usually 5 per shift. That's kind of there's around 22 people actively working all the time, 24 hours a day.
Sure.
Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't really realize unless you're actually working out here. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. I think like my overall question is like, from my specific point of view, from like what I do for work, are there any like construction management companies or general contractors that organize everything through like an Exxon Mobil? Or does it go straight to like, do they subcontract out you guys as like the trucking agency and
so
have contracts with you?
there is it's like a general contractor, I guess. They have consultants. So
Yeah,
there
sure.
is lead consultants that kind of travel between the coil units and the rigs that are in operation. And then there's also consultants that are like the lower range that they're actively as one consultant at least on every active location all the time.
Sure.
So typically we had 4 consultants that we worked with all the time, and every 2 weeks they would swap with the other 2 guys. So 2 guys would be there, they'd swap with the other 2 guys, and whichever guy had days one time, he would have nights the next time. They'd flip every time they came
Yeah.
back. So,
Yep.
and
All
he's kind of
12-hour shifts.
oh yeah, yep, always 12-hour shifts. But he's um the main person to ask if there's anything that happens or anything. Like, he's kind of, like I said, the general contractor. So if hey, there's, we need more trucking, whatever, you have to okay it through them in order to
Right.
be able to call in more trucks. To Usually it's not a big deal. Like, if I'm falling behind and whatever, I need to get another truck going so that we don't run out of water. Running out of water when you are down the well is really bad,
Yeah.
because it'll stop and it'll create all the friction. And there's no saying if the bit is going to start again once it stops in the well. So
Will it
it's
hold
it's
the head
really
pressure,
hot.
or do the bits ever blow back out?
Occasionally the bits have problems. Usually they just smooth off. They like the teeth will round over. Um,
Because
the
it's not going
it,
at a fast enough speed to.
Yeah, it's dulling it instead
Yeah.
of chipping away the outside.
you have a lot of pressure and you're always grinding on something. It's just like any saw. Like, you think of a circular saw, the more and more and more boards you cut, the more dull and dull and dull the blade gets. It's
Right.
kind of the same thing where these teeth, it's like a triangle, and it's got 3 different revolving, um like stones, I guess is a good way to put it. So it spins sideways, and the stones spin with diamond bits. So it's kind of grinding the material that it's touching.
Right.
Over time, they get dull and they have to be swapped out. Even sometimes we won't make it to the bottom of a hole, and the bit could be ruined just because it's ran into so much stuff. And depending on the hardness level of some of those different things, they put cast iron bridge plugs in some of the wells that actually cast iron is metal. So that's a big factor when it comes to knowing what's in the well.
When you bore through all those, when you're done, do you have to go back and replace every single plug, or is that a different?
That would be a different crew. Usually a wireline crew will set plugs. And a wireline is like, if you think of if we're putting a 3-inch tube down, they're putting like a 1-inch wire down. So
That's crazy that they just,
Yeah.
you just like feed it down.
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. Feed it down, and then it'll tighten, and it'll make the plug expand into the wellbore. So
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's crazy to think about. Yeah, because you hear about all these pipelines in the news and the oil rigs in the Dakotas and Texas.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like a lot of the times it doesn't really explain. That's the way like kind of everything is though. Like we're ultimate consumers at this point. Like you just walk to the grocery store and you buy whatever you want to eat because there's
You don't have to
10,000
know where
options.
it came from. You don't have to kill a chicken. You don't have to shoot a deer. Like it's easy.
Yep.
It's crazy, and we're moving so far away from that. But like, I always find it so interesting where, especially like natural resources come from, natural resource production. I mean, we rely on gas almost more than anything else. I mean, think about even the electricity that they use and stuff to create it. We don't have enough renewable energy stuff, and I don't know that we will in the near future. So
Exactly.
craziness to think about.
A lot of people don't really realize where any of your gas comes from. A lot of people heat their houses with natural gas. A lot of people heat their houses with fuel oil. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that you're heating a house and you're driving a car. You don't really realize how much of that has to be mined and comes out of the ground until it's inevitably. I mean, oil is an ever renewing resource, but it takes millions of years to break down to become oil. So
Right.
eventually there is always a possibility of it running out at some point or being extremely limited. And a lot of that has to do with fuel prices too. There's fuel prices in a lot of places that are astronomical compared to areas where it actually is from. So like here right now, I drive a diesel, and gas this morning was $3 a gallon, where friends in California, $9 a gallon. It's crazy.
That's wild. That is a
It's
lot.
around $3 here.
Yeah, which is it's always been relatively like medium here. Back in Pennsylvania, I think Pennsylvania has the second highest gas tax of any state. But I don't know whether it has to do with the logistics and the shipping lines. It's not as expensive as like a Jersey or like a New York City or like places in California. I'm not really sure where that wealth gets just like distributed. I'm sure it's in state and local governments to some degree.
Yeah, it's probably also well, I guess it depends too, but there's more demand in places like California. I mean, they have almost 60 million
Definitely.
people out of the 360 million Americans. It's kind of a wild statistic if you actually think about it.
Yeah.
So
how many? What's that percent? Like 15?
Yeah, somewhere 15 to 20% of the total population. But
the other thing people don't really realize is how crazy the pricing on all this stuff changes. So based on presidency and stuff, how the oil price changes because of whether we're able to mine for oil now, or if they try and get foreign oil and import it. So that the other thing is numbers. So one barrel is 42 gallons. So you think about that. One barrel of oil is 42 milk jugs.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
crazy.
that's
one of my typical trucks hauls at least 130 barrels.
130 barrels. What's the price per barrel right now?
Around $75 per barrel. So you think if you do the math on that, 75 and 130 is $10,000 a truck.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How many trucks do you get like a day from all the different sites and stuff?
It totally depends, I guess, on the specific site production.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have other companies that do the actual oil sales and stuff like that, but we can get anywhere from nothing some days to 200-400 barrels of oil a day, or out of one well while we're servicing it. So
Right. That's nuts, man.
I don't know if you know too much more about, like, I'm sure more than I do at least, but like, what's the like refining process post barreling? Like they sell the crude oil and it goes to like a plant that refines to what you put in your car or whatever
Yeah.
the process is.
So we run a lot of stuff through a separator. So oil, when it comes out of the ground, it can really vary in color. It can be really green. It can be really brown. It just depends on what it's mixed with or where it was sitting or anything like
Yeah,
that.
the rock type it's in, etc.
Yes. But we run it through a separator typically to try and get the most pure form of oil that we can to sell. And then they will sell it to an actual refinery, and the refinery will um, heavily compress it usually, and it will get any of the sediment that is left out of it that you don't want in anything really. Refining it, I guess, is the
Yeah,
Right.
the whole process. But
Yeah, that's crazy how that works, man. And then, yeah, I guess it probably goes off to a facility because they combine it with different stuff to make like ethanol fuel and
Yep.
whatever. But
that right off 270 above Denver was that Sunoco maybe natural gas refinery.
oh,
I go
really?
past it every day for like 2 years.
That is
Yep.
wild. Yeah, you don't just apply for a permit and get it out of the natural gas line that's in beneath your street. Like it has to come from somewhere.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. I mean, think about the distribution networks, I'm sure, like the logistics companies and like the freight and
Yeah, they were adjacent to a freight yard, like train lines.
they probably have to
It's
be.
probably their own
Yeah.
back and forth to North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight
South
back.
Dakota and Texas are two of the biggest oil fields that we have in the United States. There's actually another kind of up and coming, very large patch of oil actually over in PA that
Really?
they're starting to tap into. So,
What does Alaska's look like? Is it harder to access in
Alaska
that weather?
is also very, very vast, but Alaska is, yes, it's extreme to say the least. So,
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine because like I've heard stories of like previous coworkers that like the previous company I worked for, a general contractor, had jobs in Alaska, and people would go work there, and you don't just ship stuff there. It has to get brought in like a huge freight carrier or airlifted in like a helicopter or whatever they can use.
There's the world's smallest Costco is in like I think Fairbanks maybe or something, and they have a specialty like maybe it was the world's largest Costco actually. It was something like that, but they have a whole like bush delivery thing where they like will bring people in like remote villages like dog food and shit. Like they fly it out from that center.
That's cool.
I have to look that up because I butchered that, but it's I saw like a reel about it.
Yeah, I mean, getting all that machinery there, I mean, I can't even imagine how much it costs probably for everybody to set something up in an oil field, you know what I mean? Much less fly it all out or ship it all out on a huge ship or whatever, you know?
you think just our offices. So every time we move our usually two trailers of an office. One of them is more like a bunkhouse kind of for the consultants, and the other one is like their office, I guess, as well as a meeting shack that we always have a safety meeting every day, both times at 5:45, morning and evening. Day shift, night shift. Usually swap shifts after that meeting at 6 o'clock. So, but yeah, those shacks, just moving those two shacks is $10,000 a piece just to move them.
That's crazy. Are they like Will Scott trailers, rental trailers or something like that? Or is it more of like something y'all build out? Yeah.
They're just skid shacks, man. I mean, you pull them up onto a semi trailer and the semi goes to the next place and dumps it off. Like, and you think it could be 10 minutes down the road. It could be right there in $10,000.
10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah, man. Logistics costs and freight costs.
Oh, everything costs an astronomical amount out here as well. So moving light towers or fuel tanks or any of that kind of stuff. I can't even imagine how much money it is every time we move. A total number, I'd say it's probably somewhere in the $100,000 range
Sure.
just to move from one to the next.
That makes me wonder what the risks associated are, and like what the risk management or loss tolerance is for those logistics and freight companies. Because I mean, like that sounds like such a lucrative or like great opportunity to get into. So I'm sure it can't. There's got to be a lot of problems with it, or else everybody would be doing it.
It's super tough to set up and overhead and everything, but those
Oh, yeah.
companies also they're spending that much on the overhead and the cost of operations, and those people are still, those companies, corporations are still like $1 billion industries. So like they're definitely turning profit, not in like a judgment way, whatever, but it's like, it's obviously worth spending that much to move from well to well and do that stuff weekly
Right.
and all whatever, which sounds crazy, but they're definitely making enough to do it and maintain it,
Right.
In order to have an oil field company, you're obligated to have at least a $2 million insurance policy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
If you run into a wellhead, and that wellhead, to fix it, or even if it's unfixable, you're thinking it's $7 million just to drill it. That's not including any services at all.
Yeah.
And that one thing, that's your entire insurance policy if you break it off.
Yeah, it could bankrupt you off this first drill.
Guaranteed. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy with a lot of that stuff, that some companies now are saying you have to have a $5 million policy because the wells are getting more expensive because they're bigger bores and they go deeper or whatever
Higher
it
volume,
is.
higher output.
Yep.
Damn.
But can you imagine, it's thousands of dollars a month on insurance. And for my field is trucking. So each truck adds to that insurance policy, and we have a fleet of probably around 30 trucks. So running all of those trucks every month it adds up fast.
Oh, and that's not even considering or including like your own insurance and liability and coverage and everything per employee, per salary, per everything else, and like on top of this, just general operation costs.
Well, and that doesn't include any of the trainings or the hazards or any of that. We have to go to multiple classes, high risk specialty training to be able to work around wellheads. And then you think you have different stuff like your hazmat for truck drivers and stuff. You have to go through hazmat and tanker training, which is, hey, you have to be able to, a lot of our sites, you can't have facial hair because you have to be able to have a gas mask cover you in case there's poisonous gas that comes out of the ground. By the time you smell it, you're dead. So it's very, very hazardous in some instances. There's been we were very lucky last year. We only had, I think, 3 or 4 locations that actually had poisonous gas that tested above the lethal level. Most of the time, you can kind of smell it in the water. Even in North Dakota, it's very sulfur. It smells like rotten eggs. That's just a very, very common thing. Most people have multiple water softeners or other water filtration systems trying to nullify that, and part of that is why I live in Montana. So
yeah, I'm sure. Do they pull from like reservoirs? They got a lot of like lakes and stuff there, and it's probably
a lot of those are man-made, the reservoirs, and they're designed to retain and hold water for those dry seasons. So that's a lot of out west.
There's a lot of irrigation and stuff that goes on. They have a lot of irrigation canals here and stuff, but it's kind of sporadic because of the terrain. So it really depends. The main, I guess, center point of this oil field is Newtown. It's right on Lake Sakakawea, and it's massive. It's a gigantic lake. But that's I guess part of the thing is a lot of the water is the same because of that. So anything that you're smelling really comes mostly from the same general vicinity.
Right. Yeah, the groundwater, whatever's getting into there. Yeah, I mean, the more we talk about it, and like, I like to talk about the infrastructure system, the electrical grid, like the water, the plumbing system, I'm sure the natural gas, how all that gets in and out. We here in Richmond went through a water crisis, so to speak. We were without like filtered water for I think what 3.5 days, and it just shows how easily something like that can just shut down. And like, there's only a couple specialized crews that actually have the knowledge to get in there, fix it, and deal with the situation properly. And makes you realize sometimes that like our public service leaders and people like that, were complacent for too long and didn't have the proper fail safes in place to mitigate a situation like that. It's unfortunate, and of course, we can't predict that an event like that's going to happen. I think what happened was water pump failed, and then the something flooded, blew an electrical breaker, and then all of a sudden the entire pump system was out. With no indication when they can get it back. Bring in what is it? The federal aid, give us water supplies, whatever. But like, it just shows how easily National Guard. That's right. Just shows how easily something like that can happen, and then all of a sudden you can't just go to the grocery store because they're
out of the river with a bucket.
right.
Yep.
I don't know how to do that.
It creates a lot of panic when something of that nature happens. Out here, I guess a lot of people wonder, what the fail safes are for that, and that's a lot of the times it's having more people work on it. Honestly, some
Yeah,
places that
absolutely.
we have one or two people go out to a place and they'll be doing different things. Well, pretty soon you go to check on your buddy and he might not be alive. It's a very be your brother's keeper kind of industry. So a lot of it
Sure.
is help each other out. If you see something, say something. Don't get complacent. Don't think, oh, everything's going good today. I have nothing to worry about, because anything could go wrong at any time. Any of the pipes that we use could, blow a seal. We could have um, water all over the place from that. We could have oil all over the place from that. You could have escaping, gases coming from any of that. There's a lot of different things. We also use a lot of liquid nitrogen um, to clean the interior of a lot of the pipes and stuff. So using that liquid nitrogen is poisonous. So you have a nitrogen leak that could be just a white cloud that you wouldn't really think anything. Oh, it's steam or whatever. You walk into it and you're dead. There's not a it's a oxygen deficiency, I guess, is um the cause of death in a lot of these.
Asphyxiation,
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean, you literally choke
Choke
on
on
it.
it, yeah.
That's wild. Crazy to think about. I mean, here's hoping y'all get compensated enough. I mean, shit, man.
Oh yeah, payout here is very good. I mean, it's enough that, I mean, like myself, I own a house in Minnesota and I live in Montana to work out here. I rent a house because it's enough income to pay for two different living situations. So
Yeah. And, I'm sure you can probably speak this more than I can, obviously, but like, I'm sure it gives you, availability to do the things that you enjoy doing. You were talking about animals earlier and like owning
oh yeah,
animals and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, man, that's my main goal. I want a second source of income or something elsewhere so then I can really invest in my hobbies or the things I enjoy doing.
exactly. There's plenty. I mean, and with this kind of a job, you're working 7 days a week. You don't get weekends off. You don't get, any of that kind of thing. So most groups they typically work 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. Well, I typically don't. I try and go, 2, 3, 4 months, and then I'll take, a couple weeks off here or there. Try and really gain wealth, and then when you're taking time off, you can spend your money on whatever you want because you have a lot saved. And a lot of that, I guess, goes into whatever, like you said, whatever you really want to do with it. If you're, sending a check home every 2 weeks to your family or something, that's putting them on a pedestal. There's like my wife. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she takes care of our son. I have a 9-month-old son, and that's just one of the luxuries, I guess, that she doesn't have to work because I make enough money to be able to support us here and at my other house. But it's it's a very rich industry for being able to work away from home, and I'm just lucky enough to be able to live here also with my family and not have to be away from them. But a lot of people aren't that lucky.
Yeah, man. Good for you. I mean, that's really
That's
hard work and attitude, man. Like, I love to hear that. We've connected on a lot of levels, I think, over the last 10 years. And I've always loved to hear from you about all the things you were doing or where you were living at or what you got into recently. It was always fun to hear that, especially, as someone who has maintained a relationship with you at like I'll Snapchat you now and then, or we play video games together. It's not like I see you. I mean, we've only seen each other once in person, right? And that was in Jamaica. But like being able to
Yeah.
connect like for that long a time, it's really exciting, man. And that's awesome to hear. Love that you're
Oh
loving
yeah,
it.
it's great. I mean, I really couldn't ask for a better lifestyle, I guess, being fortunate enough to travel around and maintain different friendships and different lifestyles. I guess there's a lot that goes into this kind of a thing that most people don't either have the opportunity or, hey, I don't know if I could do that or not. I don't want to be away from family. Well, a lot of guys I know, they'll either be away from their family for all extended periods of time, or hey, these guys are working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. They'll fly home right at the end of their shift every 2 weeks, and they'll go be home for 2 weeks. They'll come and work for 2 weeks. But it's you either spend a lot of time in a hotel or a lot of time in a man camp or in some other kind of smaller situation, unless you actually live up here. And
Yeah.
being from Minnesota, I'm used to the weather here, so it's not anything different. Like I was talking about before, the weather here last week, it was 50 below zero, and now today it was 50 above zero. It's very, very drastic, and learning how to live and drive and just be
What's your
be a
commute?
member of society in this region
Yeah.
of the world is difficult for a lot of people.
Sure.
How long is your commute?
Um, that living in Montana is pretty far. My wife is a Montana native. She's from here, so she wanted to keep her Montana residency. Um, so I live over here and working as far into North Dakota as potentially 2 hours one way
Yeah.
some days. So I spend uh, 12 hours actively on location every day, and then you think up to 4 hours of driving on top of that.
Yeah.
If I'm driving home. So,
Yeah,
and
that's
most
crazy.
days I drive home regardless of how far it is, just to be with the family. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Having a baby, I can't imagine like that's going to make it more difficult to spend time away. I'm sure, and like as you were saying before, I think it's like it's what you're willing to sacrifice. I mean, you're going to put yourself in a great spot at a older age, because of your sacrifices up front. But I guess some people feel differently and can't do it, or like you said, don't have the opportunity to do so. So I'm glad you're taking advantage of the situation, man. It sounds like you're fucking killing it.
oh yeah, we're trying to make the best of it while we're young, I guess is the best way to
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah.
No
A
better
lot of
time
people,
than now.
a lot of people come up here, for even 5, 10 years, and it's just a money market industry. If you can find a company that is going to help you with housing or help you with a company vehicle or insurance or any of those things, they add up drastically. So it's very it's very easy to get sucked in and stay here. um A lot of people do it. They say, "Hey, I'm going to go up there for 5 years. I'm going to make 100 and, you know, well, make $500,000, let's say, and then I'm going to come home." I know, I know a boatload of people that they're like, "Yeah, I'm on year 12 of my 5-year plan."
Right.
They, they it's once you start making so much money, you start spending more money. It's kind of a human nature thing. You have
Absolutely.
more available. Oh, I'm gonna go buy a new truck just because I can. It's not a worry. In
Yep.
oil field, you almost don't want to do that because it's very up and down. Um,
Yep.
some years you might work every single day, never have a day off. The next year you might only work 5 months. You never know,
Right.
depending on your um, specific job title, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I've stressed so many times, not only like on the podcast here, but just in like friendly conversations with me and my buddies or whatever. If we're talking, we're hammered and talking about politics or whatever. It's the education system's failure to teach financial knowledge and responsibility. And I think that's almost the point by the U.S. education system because consumerism rules the United States for most parts. It's capitalism. We want people to buy the new iPhone every year. We want people to buy 2025 Suburbans that are $10,000 more, but actually cost less to make because they're shittier parts. You know what I mean? Like the
Exactly.
profit margins have to continue increasing, and I feel like
Quarterly growth.
yeah, and I feel like it's not stressed enough at a younger age. You know,
It's
to
very
learn how
true.
to deal with finances. Yeah. So
Well,
that's
and dealing
tough.
with the inflation of the country is another giant thing that people don't, they never got the knowledge on how inflation works, so they don't know how to actively scale their products the right way. That, oh, this year I'm going to add $10,000 to my bill. Well, that might not be enough. It might be way too much. You never know unless you
Right.
learn. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. That's something we see a lot in the construction industry and like general contracting side. We have labor rate or not labor rate that are just going up this year. I mean, all the materials. I mean, all these new
oh yeah,
tariffs and steel prices and wood prices and I mean labor rate increases from a bunch of different companies, and now we have to adjust our general condition pricing. It's not as easy as being like, oh hey, steel went up 20% and wood went up 10%, labor rate went up 15%. Let's just because 14 is in the middle. Let's just do that. There's actively a plan behind picking up that extra monetary value, and that kind of sucks. From my perspective, I wish it wasn't all based on monetary value. It was based on merit and ethics and morals and stuff like that, delivering a good product to the consumer. But unfortunately, you can't win normally with that point of view or that operation. So it sucks, and a lot of companies either end up being bought out by somebody that can run it cheaper or find a way around certain logistics or product that they find is cheaper to manufacture out of country or wherever else, right? Yeah, I mean, then it just goes to big corporate, and then they all absorb small business, especially people with great ideas too. I think too many people are taken advantage of in that sense, like people that have really good business ideas or like genius inventions or creating a new way to do something. Sometimes they get kind of stepped on by the big guys just because they don't have the resources to promote their product or like really get it out there. And that's what frustrates me about capitalism. Then again, like I don't think we'd have the health advancements that we do in this country without capitalism. The free market economy actively competing to make better medicine that it sells better or works better because it's more expensive. However that financing goes, I think
Because
it's
everything
driven.
else operates in that system, it has to kind of do so to drive that advancement. It wouldn't be able to happen externally, at least not the way things are structured right now.
Right, exactly. So in that way, it's a good thing, but it depends on your current situation too. I'm sure like people out there will be hearing this and be like, oh, I don't agree with that, or I totally agree with that. It probably depends on your financial situation, whether you're renting or own a house, you paid off your mortgage, you have student loan debt, you have a car payment, you have this or that, children, dependents, so many things that factor into one monthly, payment, right? You pay rent, and then you pay all the utilities, and then there's so many things. And then I have renter's insurance and Spotify and Netflix, and
Yeah.
and they make it difficult to track. I mean, you have to pay for that Rocket Money mortgage app or whatever just so it can AI a freaking Excel spreadsheet for you. I mean, there's no way that's not like a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be easier.
Well, and you really think about stuff like you were just talking about with bills, and bills like they stack out here. My monthly bills, and you're thinking that like if you encompass everything, food, fuel, insurance, your phone, your car, your everything, and that's I don't have a car payment. I own all of my vehicles outright. And I have a mortgage on a house and I rent a house. I have utilities for both, internet for both, everything. There's a whole 9 yard string. I'm probably pushing somewhere in that $4,000 to $5,000 a month range just to live comfortably with my bills.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you think about that, I mean, even
most of the time that's 5 months for some people. That's my 1 month bills because of being here.
Yep. And I mean, people with dual incomes can't afford something like that, which is crazy,
Exactly.
In specific parts of the world. But I don't know, it's just crazy how that whole system's set up too, like I feel like even different parts of the United States, it's totally different. I mean, we still have the federal minimum wage here in Virginia. I think we still comply with that, or our minimum wage $9 now or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you think
it's like 17 in Colorado.
You think $9.50 can go to the store and buy groceries for a week with 2 kids and a husband or whatever? You know what I mean? Like you're working 45 hours, no shot. So
no chance.
That's the problem too with a lot of that too. Everyone argues to like not everyone, but people say like, oh well, then learn skills or don't work at McDonald's type stuff, and it's like that's just what companies are paying because they don't have to pay more. They're not incentivized legally, so they don't. And like you apply for even skilled positions, and they're like, all right, well we'll start you at 11. That's more than minimum wage. Like they're bragging about it. It's like that you can't afford anything with that,
Yep. There's a lot of that goes on that most people don't really see. Like today, it's extremely hard for anybody. I turned 26 on Thursday, and that's
this Thursday or last Thursday?
This Thursday.
All right. Well, happy early birthday, bro.
Thank you. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's very hard for people my age or around my age, even somewhat older than me, to try and buy a house right now. Yep. Because the housing market is extremely inflated. There's nobody that can afford anything because nobody's making enough money to correlate. I mean, the only reason that I own a house right now is because I do the work that I do. I mean, otherwise, and I was talking about it before we got on the podcast, but trying to fathom buying a house over here versus renting a house, even if the mortgage rate is the same, you can't necessarily afford it in the eyes of the bank because they want you to have less than 50% of your income going towards bills. Well, over half by a significant margin with paying 2 mortgages would be, I'd be in the 75-80% range probably buying a house, even though I'm affording it now and I'm still saving plenty of money. It's not technical for them to be able to support you in something like that. So I would have to sell.
They also have to turn a profit on their loan. If you can afford it, they're like, nah.
Right. And that's the issue with money lenders and leveraging with banks and stuff like that, and the FDIC insurance. Had a good episode with Pat on that. I asked him a bunch of questions about the Fed and interesting stuff. One thing I kind of wanted to get into, the more we talk about skilled labor, is just the skilled labor realm in general. I see it a lot with MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC guys, it's hard shit they do. And I think it was the last podcast or 2 ago, I was just talking about sometimes I just like stand there and watch guys do shit, even if it's like mudding the drywall. They just fucking flip it up, bam, 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 done. I mean, it's crazy how skilled some of these guys are at like things like that. And then I can't imagine the next level up when you get to mechanical, electrical, plumbing, like knowing all the types of wires to get in each place. You got low voltage, obviously, like the HDMI's, and then you have the all the electrical wiring that goes through all different circuits and is tied to the panel board and gets wired through the entire house or corporate building, whatever. And you have to use different type of grade cable for different applications, like medical grade cables, different than office grade, whatever. I don't know the technical terms
all
for
of
that.
it's different when it comes down, difference between your Cat 6 and your Cat 5e cables for different internet connections and things. My dad's a master low voltage electrician, so I know all about that situation
really?
too.
It's super
But
cool,
yeah,
man. I moved into estimating now, and like just seeing. I dive a lot more into the plans, and I get to learn a lot more about how the building's built. I think even than from like a project management standpoint, because I need to make sure those mofo's are getting their bid to me right, man. Like I can't. Not even a dollar more. Yeah, not even a dollar more. Can I say I'm going to pay the client than what I'm allowed to, right? So just learning all those silly little things that get overlooked in almost every single application. I mean, one that's pretty significant is blocking for what is it, like specific roof stuff. The roofers don't want to take it because they're claiming on their warranty that's going to be watertight and they don't want to penetrate the roof. The drywallers won't take it. They're the ones who typically do blocking because they don't want to void the warranty for the roofer. You have all these different trades that, won't step on each other's toes or will, and there's liability here and there. But I think the point that I wanted to get to is the labor shortage in construction. I really think we need a lot more skilled labor than we currently have.
Even going alongside that, truck drivers making the federal mandate to make CDL, you have to go to school to get a CDL now. Is crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to go to over a month of school just to be able to obtain your CDL. And that's saying that you went through all the schooling and you passed the schooling, and then you have to pass your road test just like you do for a driver's license. There's an extensive amount, and it's over $5,000 in most states that you can't, like, when my grandpa was a kid, he got his first driver's license. He just wrote on there that you literally check a box that says you wanted to be a CDL driver, and that was it. There wasn't any extra test. There wasn't any extra anything, and you just paid extra money to own a CDL. Now you have to go to $5,000 worth of schooling. Like I know 3 people that have a CDL that are under 30 years old, like growing up through school, that went and got their CDL when they turned 18. And I missed that opportunity because then they federally mandated everything and made it virtually impossible for a lot of people to do that because they can't afford it. It's not even about people not wanting to do it. It's that they can't afford it. I mean, you expect people to still be able to live comfortably while having to take time off and not making money because they're taking time off, and go to school and pay money for that school to be able to potentially get this extra thing to be able to go make more money. Like there's nobody that's going to do it because there's so many negatives in the beginning to try and, like, if you're coming out of school and you have, like, out of high school and you have the ability to go and do this, a lot of kids don't even have the ability to go to college. That's one of those things. You basically have to treat it like college is the way that I look at it.
Sure.
I can't take a month off of work right now and go get my CDL just because I want to. Like I have so, like I was just saying, $5,000 in bills a month. Yeah, I can make more than double that in a month, but you think I'm taking that off. That means I have to save in order to be able to justify taking that much time off. And that's hoping that the classes are all back to back to back to back, being able to get it done in that month. I have some people that have told me it takes even 2 months. So
yeah, I mean it's they're definitely just making it a higher threshold to get there.
Yeah,
A smaller percentage of people that can do so, or a smaller group of people that can obtain that license, and they're making it kind of like college and not, high overhead to kind of get into it, and then like you don't know if you're going to get picked up by X trucking company that pays 50 cents a mile or B company that pays 25 cents a mile, like whatever the market is at that time. It's kind of crazy to me. I mean, like, we need more of these things, and yet
we're getting less and less and less because it's
right, because
more possible to do.
Right, we're thinning out the opportunities to do so. And
Well,
I think that's
the worst
almost
part
on
about
purpose.
it all is you think of how the baby boomers are the ones that are becoming able to retire now. You think how many people there was during the boom that now are all going to retire at the same time. It's going to be an absolutely massive shortage on truck drivers and laborers in general. That
Yep.
there's going to be the only people doing it are going to be able to charge insane amounts of money because they're the only option, And when it comes to that, you think everything. It's just going to be a massive inflation because of nobody being able to do it legally. So
Now, what does the federal government do when that happens? Like, they're obviously trying to squeeze it. Yeah, I mean, like, dude, anybody with a fucking degree in economics or like the knowledge of Microsoft Excel could probably put together, with enough time and research, of course, could put together a diagram of like how the CDL, like the current licenses are trending. Like, it's definitely going downwards, right? And like, we have an ever growing supply, or ever growing demand rather, of logistics.
I don't get that, like we were talking about earlier too, with affording housing or anything like that. I don't get the economic not virtue of, or value rather, of doing exactly that, increasing costs without increasing wages. Because like your whole point is, oh, let's go economy, go do this, do that. How the fuck am I supposed to participate in your economy and buy shit from Walmart and buy groceries from here and get gas from like? How do I do that if I can't afford to do that? Like, do you want my money or not? Like,
Credit card debt.
I mean, sure, but how does that benefit them? Those companies don't get their money back. These people aren't paying them. That's why they're in debt.
Right.
Like, how is that beneficial? No one's not, like, you're going to just do that to 300 million people and then be like, oh, pay up. No, then what are you, they're not going to have it.
Right. And I think that's kind of the point too. Like, keep people poor. That way you don't, people can't get hip to, I don't even know, man. I think I'm describing it in a poor way, but like, by having them in credit card debt, they always owe the bank, right? They can never dig themselves out of it. They always are in consumerism mode, I feel like, almost.
Well, you're stuck there, yeah.
Yeah, you're just stuck you're stuck. And I think that's kind of manipulated or created almost like the Matrix, right? Like, they're using you for your knowledge or your brain power or whatever. Labor. Yeah, right.
Work, eat, sleep, work.
Speaking of CDLs specifically, I got numbers on when I was going through my CDL testing stuff before they switched this government mandate. So now we're at about roughly, let's say, $4,000 to $5,000 to get a CDL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we were sitting at roughly in the $1,000 to $1,500 range. So you think that 3x just trying to get your CDL in money wise, and that doesn't include you having to take a month of time off. And back then, you think this is all. I mean, listeners can't see, but this was the old CDL manual. It's only the size of a small paperback book.
Yeah.
And now you have to go to a month of schooling just to learn what you could read physically, in a day or two. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, just making that threshold harder.
Yeah.
But one thing as we trend off of the labor topic and skilled labor and how we are vastly in need of people to fill those industries, I kind of wanted to talk about a few of the other odd jobs or hobbies or things that you did. You were mentioning before we got onto the podcast. One thing that got me extremely excited, you said you built log cabins.
Yes, I did a lot of custom construction, anywhere from custom log homes to different sit panels, which is pieces of plywood with glue, insulation foam, glue, and then plywood on the other side. So they're basically like giant Legos that you can build walls out of. That's my favorite kind of houses to build. They're some of the times it's the most frustrating because they don't fit together perfectly or exactly how you want them to, but a lot of that is um, very easy to fix and work around. And um, log cabins are difficult.
I'm
Um,
sure.
long spikes, and everything is so that through the bricks is
Like
really easy.
the blocks, you drill through
There's
the
like
foam.
a PVC pipe hole more or less through the different sections. You can just feed wires right through it. It's very simple. The whole thing
Huh.
is very, very nice to work with.
Nice.
Really? Okay. So like those P-lamp panels, are those the ones that you kind of strap up and you pull up, you set them, and then you kind of pull up into place? Am I
You
thinking of
can,
something
yeah.
different?
Yeah, we lay a bunch of them down and get everything ready on the ground, and then you'll stand them vertically, and they just sink
Yeah,
onto a thing, and then they'll slide together. So
that's
they're
craziness.
they're
Is
really
that
nice to work with.
that's built into like the footer? So I'm sure you're laying like a
Yep.
foundation that's kind of like built into it. That's crazy. Is it like a cinder block or a CMU that has that shape cut out, or does it kind of fit onto like a mold y'all have? Or
It kind of depends on how exactly you go. So they also have another form of kind of Legos in the concrete world. I've also worked concrete and building. So I've built houses all the way from the ground all the way up to finishing. So
yeah,
in the concrete world, there's a different form of Legos that you can build corners. They're typically only 2 feet long, 3 feet long at the most, and they can even have corners on them. So you can build full basements and stuff because they're concrete filled and insulated on the outside. So it's forming the concrete with the insulation already there, so you don't have to re-insulate after they're
yeah.
down. And then you're just putting a water barrier on the outside of it to make it waterproof while it's in the ground. And typically they're underground.
Yeah, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Going up to a paneled house from that, they don't join together specifically. So you would probably pour a cap on top of the concrete and then glue and tap with long nails or anchors a board on the floor. And then the panel would come with an inset of that 1.5 inch or 3 inch, depending on
Yeah,
how big of a cap you put, and it would just set right on top of there. So
that's super neat. That's like that almost that modular construction type
Yeah.
stuff. I love how, you know, we've come from like stick built and then you sheet it and all that fun stuff to like creative opportunities to construct a house. I'm not, it probably took you a little bit less time, but it was probably way easier in terms of like labor, right? Like,
as far as labor goes, you set almost all of it with a machine, so you don't have to. You're not breaking your back picking up boards all day and cutting boards to length for the most part. Uh, and all of it is variable on what homeowners' needs are for their price range. And
sure.
using SIP panels, when you think about it, you're using or you already have an insulated home building with a SIP panel, and they're virtually just as strong as a stick built house. You still have inserts in every end of every piece that are wood, and they every joint is wood to wood. It's not it's not like there's foam all the way through and they're just flimsy. They're actually very sturdy, and they're made in 4 foot sections, up to 24 feet long. Typically, it's around 4 by 8. for wall height. Sometimes it's 4x9, 4x10. Most people like 8-foot walls, so
Right.
you can get 3 sections out of it. If you get 9 or 10 footers, it's going to cost more because they have to recut stuff. If you get 8-foot walls or you get 12-foot walls, then they only have to cut it one time. It saves them time because they're making 3 pieces or they're making 2 pieces. It's not
Right.
it's cheaper. So if you get 10-foot walls, it's going to cost you way more money than it would to just get 12-foot walls. It'll be cheaper to get 12-foot walls than 10 because they don't have to spend all the time on it.
Yeah.
But
You do like 3-story homes with
oh yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah, they're building the whole thing up.
yeah, I've built multi-million-dollar houses with SIP panels, and they hold way more weight than a lot of people think. I built a SIP panel house that had 2 different beams that weighed somewhere around 3,000 pounds each to hold the roof up. In vaulted ceilings, you can actually get panels that are roof panels, which this house also had, that insulate your roof, and they slide together just out on the angle. Instead of having a typical truss built house, you can take all that away and just build Legos, man.
Yeah, that's sick.
That's crazy. They probably designed it in a way that the
It's like a Roman arch.
yeah,
Was the
the Keystone State,
Yes,
baby,
yeah.
Pennsylvania, baby. Come on.
Yeah.
But no, I've got like one more question. Maybe Hunter has another question, and we'll let you get out of here because you said you did work today, right? So you're
I
doing this
did.
podcast for us.
I am, man.
What a man.
We appreciate the grind.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother. But one more question I have for you in terms of like house construction, building materials. Back to log cabins, Lincoln logs. How do you treat the wood? Before it has to go into the house, like the big logs on the outside, is that come from somebody like a lumberyard or a supplier?
Usually it'll come from somebody. Some people like natural built stuff. Some people only do half log homes, so they'll have like a stick built house with slabs on it, or there's a whole lot of different stuff. If you're building like your typical Lincoln log style house, you can get pre-treated logs that are just literally Lincoln logs. You can stack them like Lincoln logs and you're just pounding your spikes, or you can get raw logs, and then you'd have to treat them with specific acids and stuff to not let
Right.
them rot, and then probably a coat of stain, potentially coats of clear over the top, depending on a lot of it's all homeowner related. What you
Sure.
want in terms as far as longevity goes with maintaining your home.
Yeah. Do you get to pick it up with an excavator, the
Oh
logs, or
yeah,
how do you set them?
you like typically you're using straps because you don't want to mark up any of that stuff, but you can use more rugged equipment, I guess, depending on your variation of home building. Some people are like, I want it completely rustic. You can use a grapple if you want to pick the logs and make it easier. It's way easier to do that, but some people
Right.
want very slick looking houses. It's like, well, we'll be careful then, but it's going to take a lot more time, which in turn means it costs more money. So,
Yep.
but
Yep. Yeah, full circle back to the money again, man.
house building is amazing. I worked for 3 different house building companies, and they all were awesome. I've worked in as many trade industries as you can kind of fathom, anywhere from truck driving to building houses from the ground all the way to finish work to, you know, I was an auto body mechanic for quite a while, painting cars and fixing dents, and there's just everything, man. Pipeline welding. There's 100 industries that just most people don't get the opportunity to be able to see the life of, and I've traveled the country doing all kinds of different stuff just because I wanted to, I guess, and I was lucky enough to have the available funds to make stuff work. So,
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
living the dream, man. I love it.
That and then owning a huge property out in the middle of the U.S.
Get your ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working towards it. I'm hoping to have a compound, I think, and be able to build multiple houses in one large piece of property. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to work a deal here on 200 acres, so we'll see how that works out. But
Oh,
Hell yeah.
yeah. Hopefully that
Plenty
comes
of
through.
space.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. That's always something I kind of wanted to get more into is like home building. Learn a lot about that stuff because I never really knew anything about residential construction until I decided to study construction at school, and then kind of once I got into the industry, I've I've moved 9 times in the last 8 years or 8 times in the last 9 years or whatever, and I notice things in houses now. Like I
Ooh.
notice things that aren't properly sealed or like doors that are cut or not set on the hinges correctly because they scrape the top of the frame or silly little shit like that. Right, and like that just makes me want to create even more. I've always been a creative. You remember me back in the day making YouTube videos and Call of Duty
Yeah.
content, whatever. I want to do it myself because I'm so fucking meticulous in that stuff. I'd spend way too much time, but it'd be right. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, and that's something I feel like is gratifying to me is putting out a product that I worked hard at, and yeah, you're
I
proud
don't have
of.
a lot of that anymore.
Yeah,
Like we talked a little bit about earlier, kind of an old school plug. If you guys go to the Sector 7 Elites YouTube page, you can see video of me and Tyler, about 14 years old, um, with our first face cam reveals for our sniping team.
that's
Um,
right. I
long,
remember
long
clipping that
time ago.
together.
I remember it like it was yesterday. That was the best time.
Oh
Sitting
yeah,
on the floor playing on my 32-inch TV, Xbox 360s, man. It was wonderful.
yes sir. We used to play for hours, bro. For so
Days.
long. Yeah,
It
I don't
was
even know how
great.
much time. I don't even know how many hours or days I had in those games. A lot.
And then you think accounts wise too. You think like
Yeah,
my newest account says that I have thousands of hours and on video games, and then you think, well, this is like my fifth or sixth account that I
right.
played extensively on. I probably have, you know, somewhere in the 50, 60, 70,000 hours on different video games. And then moving into, I've been getting very into PC gaming now, as my brother builds PCs. That's that's my kind of next quirk. I've been learning League of Legends this week,
You
and
playing League?
it's
Yeah,
it's
Oh yeah.
it's completely different. I've
Sorry, we
been
took an evening of gaming away from you.
yeah.
oh man, it's even with this workload. I mean, working 110 hours a week, you think is most people work, a 40-hour week. I'm working more than double, almost 2.5 times that in one week. So you think that comes with the money as well. But even doing that and still finding the time to my true love of playing video games, man, is it's hard to maintain it. But
Yep.
and getting home, 8, 9 o'clock at night sometimes, and screw it, I'm gonna play till midnight, and I get 3 hours of sleep a day, and I'm good. I wake up at 3 a.m. every morning. I'm at work by 5. We're ready to roll. But it takes a toll eventually. I mean,
Oh, I'm
some of
sure.
those some of those times I'm like, I'm completely burnt out. I got to take 2 weeks off just to sleep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I believe it.
If I really had anything, doing construction, man, is the one of the best things that I've ever chose to do. I guess building custom houses for people is so much fun because I can visualize all the
Yeah.
way from a blueprint with a slab of concrete. I can see the house done before it's even started, and like, hey, this is gonna work, this isn't gonna work, we have to do this before we can do that. I was a foreman of a couple different construction crews, and it's a lot of fun, man. Let me tell you, it's one of my pride and joys, I guess, was roofing. I'm very, very quick at roofing, and I'd have a guy open a bundle of shingles for me, and he'd throw the shingles down, and they'd be shot before he even got the next package open. So it's it's so much fun.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy skill too. I mean, that
Yeah.
shit's hard.
I
A
was
lot of
gonna say
people don't
that
have that.
about what you said earlier. There's a subreddit called r/fast workers, and it's literally that. It's just people doing their job like really well.
Oh yeah.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
I got for that specific, I got CertainTeed certified installer, so I can I went to classes for shingling roofs and actually got certified by the shingle company CertainTeed. So
That's
Yeah,
cool.
hell yeah.
Yeah, we love that. Well, I guess few years in the future when I'm purchasing my own compound and need to build my first house, I guess I know who I can hire as a consultant to come out
there
maybe
you
for
go.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I still do that now. I have friends that are insurance adjusters, and they'll be like, "Hey, this contractor wants like a lot more money," and I'll have to break it down because the contractor won't. Sometimes they're like, "I want 10 grand to do that job," and they won't budge, and it's like, well, you got to kind of break it down into terms that normal people, let's say layman's terms, normal people
Yeah.
understand. Hey, the labor on that's going to cost a boatload, on top of the material cost, and that's if you can get the material. And then once it's really broke down, insurance companies don't really care, but you still have to. A lot of the time, it's this roof is broken, I need to have it fixed, and the insurance company is going to have to pay for it. So that's why
Right.
you pay
Yep. They just
insurance.
needed detailed breakdown, and I literally have to ask for that shit 10 times, 20 times a week. I mean, I get a bunch of bids in, and I'm like, bro, can you guys just for once, I have to ask for it every single time. Just break down. Yeah, just break it out into division or like labor, material, whatever. I just need you guys to give me a little bit because I can't justify using your cost. That's
Yep.
$2,000 more expensive. That might only be 0.5%, but I can't justify that if you're not telling me where all your money's going towards. And these guys also have everything that's in my projected scope. I can't give you the contract.
Yeah.
Even though we're buddies, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I owe it to the client, to deliver them the best possible price.
Deal.
Unless I know that guy or subcontractor A is going to suck at the job and fuck everything up and change order it a bunch. Like,
problems.
right. As long as they're not having issues, I can't do that. So I don't know, man. Like, yeah, definitely going to have to use your expertise for sure. I love that shit.
Done it for a lot of people, man. I've built I don't know, I've a lot of houses. So over 100. It's so much fun I enjoy it, at least going from, the ground up and seeing the entire process and the look on homeowners' faces when they show up and get to see the progress and they just light up, man. It's
Yeah.
the best feeling in the world when you can make somebody's day like that. So
Yeah, we love it. Yeah, it's so awesome, man. It's so intricate. And like for me, especially if it's a house that I'm purchasing, I got to live in that every day. I'm spending at least, let's say your average American, 40-hour work week. Yeah, 50% of your income. Like that's the majority of your money. That's where you're spending all of your time. I better like it. You know what I mean? Like,
Better have decent quality.
right.
With the roof dripping on you.
Right, exactly. So that's another thing that we've kind of lost the art of. I think, like, like the previous home that my girlfriend and I were renting was what was it, like a 1950 style row home or whatever, and it was exterior brick, really poorly insulated, but damn, was it cool, man. And structures like that are going to last a long time. So.
well, and that's one of those things, any of that stuff can always be remodeled. It just depends on the solidity of the foundation.
Right.
And there's a house right down the road here that I actually looked at buying 2 years ago now, surprisingly enough. And I offered this lady some money, and because the foundation is cracked and it's actually busted the wall in about a foot. And that was 2 years ago, so I don't even want to look at it now. But it still hasn't sold because of the foundation problem. But the house is 125 years old, so it's it was born very, very long before any of us. And gorgeous house, but it needs so much work. It's not even funny. And now I just saw yesterday that the house is down to the amount of money I offered her 2 years ago. That she have already been out from under it with the amount of money that I offered, and it would have been my problem to deal with.
Would
But
have been worth more 2 years ago too.
oh yeah,
Dollar amount.
exactly. Slowly but surely, houses are going to start coming down, and people are going to start buying again here. But it's
hopefully sooner rather than later, man. I obviously not obviously, but like I am not looking to buy a house in the immediate future, but it would be nice to know that like I could.
Yep.
You know, we just moved into this new place, so we'll be here for another 11 months. So then we'll be looking after that, of course. But you know, man, I think that'll about do it for us today. I really appreciate you coming on here, Hunter, sitting in, you know, as a guest in the new studio. James, you're the man, bro. We still need to get together at some point. I would love to do something like that with you and like Mackenzie. I haven't talked to Ken in a while. Pretty much you and Mackenzie are the only ones I still talk to from that trip, but it's fun keeping those connections, man. Y'all are both like incredibly interesting people. So it's always fun to chat with you, much less just on the podcast. You know, you had so many interesting things to say. And, you know, I love to hear all about that and what you're passionate about, the home building especially. You know, I really resonate with that and learning all about oil rigging and wells and all of that stuff. I never knew any of that shit before. So I always love finding somebody with passions for exciting things. And I really appreciate you taking, fucking 2 hours out of your day, you know, where you get your 3 hours of sleep to do this with me. I really do.
Man, has it already been that long? Holy cats. I didn't realize it already been 2 hours, but
yeah, bro. Yeah. It's been an hour and a half, I think, of us recording, but another 20 minutes of setup and all that fun stuff. So really appreciate it, man. Really do.
Yeah, no worries. It's glad we had the time to be able to do that. I love talking to you like always, and we like you were saying about Mackenzie, man. Love that dude too. We get to chat every once in a while and try and get invested in that beekeeping, you know.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
He's one of them guys, man. He just knows his stuff. He's always on top of the ball with that. You can ask him anything about it, and he just off the dome. But
Yep. Yeah, man. Well, thank you again, Hunter. Appreciate you sitting in, of course.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to hear about it. Glad you're on the up.
Oh yeah.
We love it. Yeah, we'll get the boys together, a little reunion action. Maybe get Mackenzie and you together on a podcast would be hilarious. I would love to do that. Definitely going to book you again. Maybe when you have 2 weeks off this time. I feel bad taking up 2 hours here tonight, bro.
No, don't mention it. Don't mention it. If it wasn't there, I'd be probably talking in Discord with somebody. So, you know.
There you go. You get to talk in Discord with us then. Well, yeah, appreciate it, brother. All right, everybody. Well, if you made it this far in the podcast, please make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. You can find us at the Slanted Attic Experience or at Slanted Attic, depending on your social media. We're available on all podcast platforms at the Slanted Attic Experience. Thanks, everybody. Always appreciate each and one of you that comes in here to listen to us ramble on for sometimes up to 2 hours. So appreciate you all. And thanks again to James and Hunter for sitting in. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
See ya.